All right, y'all, let's do this thing. Whammy. Where is my face? On the front of your neck, you say? It's me. Hello. Hello, I'm over there. That's the microphone. I was pointing at the microphone. My name is Mike Bifulco. I am Director of Technology for thegymnasium.com. Gymnasium is a free, completely free, 100% free, totally free online code school where we give away for free, for the little cost of absolutely nothing, courses on design and development of web technologies, mobile technologies, and related accoutrements. If you go to our courses page, you will see there is a multitude of lovely courses, one of which that I'm quite fond of is our Information Design and Visualization Fundamentals course, which is really quite an amazing course taught by our good friend Graham Roberts, who was at the time head of visual data viz for the New York Times. Really brilliant dude. He has a great way of delivering the course information. He talks about his work at the Times, gives some really specific examples, and they are really, really wonderful courses. You should go check it out. Create an account for free. They're free. They're always free. It's video courses. They're self-paced. You can take them whenever you want on your lunch break, when you're riding the subway to work, when you're on the can, whenever you want to do it. We've got our courses for you. So, what are we working on? What am I doing here? Well, I get on my live stream about once a week here to work on some of the new features for Gymnasium, so you can see what it's like for me to be working as a professional, finger quotes, professional person doing professional things. You can see what it's like as I learn in real time. I try not to do any of this stuff beforehand so that it's not scripted, so that you can see what real human suffering feels like, and also so that it feels like I'm auditioning for my job every week, but also in part just so that you know what it's like to be someone who's going through this stuff. Software development and design is a continual learning process, and the more that you can learn, the better. I choose to learn in public because I think it benefits other people, and if it benefits you, so much the better. I'm really happy that works out. So, what have we been working on? Well, over the past few weeks, on the stream, explicitly, we've been working on building a microservice for Gymnasium using Node.js, JavaScript, React, to serve up more dynamic content on the Gymnasium site. So you'll see well, I'm not logged in right now, but if I go to the Gymnasium homepage and scroll down a bit, there are a few different places on the site where we have some job listings showing. And our hope is that we can make these job listings a little more dynamic and a little more catered to the person who's viewing the site if you have an account with us, so that we can show you jobs that are more relevant to you. Currently, the way this is implemented, we use an API that's provided by sort of our parent company, and it's not particularly crafted to our needs. So I'm writing a microservice. We've been writing a microservice together that consumes that API and turns it around into a format that's more useful for our purposes, and then takes that formatted data from the API and turns it into a React component, which will then be rendered in an iframe on this page, which will represent these job listings that will be context aware, so they'll know to show jobs that are relevant to JavaScript on our JavaScript courses, for example, or jobs that are specific to Charlotte if you're in Charlotte like I am, and so on and so forth. So how have we been doing that? Well, like I said, we're using Node and React. I have not touched this since last week because we got into a place at the end of the stream where there's a significant learning opportunity, and I wanted to save that experience for the stream. In plain English, what that means is I broke this thing really bad, and I was in the process of unbreaking it, and I didn't want to deprive you of the experience of seeing me do that, because I find it a little bit frustrating when things like this happen and, a few moments later flash back into the future and everything's fixed and you don't get to see what that process is like. So what that means is in tab number the second here, you can see our currently running microservice application on my local dev instance, which is completely broken, which is not the best thing in the world, but you know what, we're going to work through it today. We're going to figure out hopefully what the problems are, get it back to a running state, and start working on some of this dynamic routing. I should say too that from some of the experience that I've had building this thing, it does seem like it would have been much easier to start from Facebook's Create React app sort of boilerplate, which is, I think, something that we still could do. And to be honest, it might be a route I take if this gives me a lot of trouble. But I think there is some value in building this from scratch. If you were here for the very first episode we did this, we started from npm init and started a blank project and added all the things and configured everything. The boilerplate project is really good because it does a lot of those steps for you, but I think there's some value in doing it from scratch. And to be honest, I don't know if I'd ever done something like this completely from scratch before, so I'm learning as I go here, and you get to learn with me. So let's see where we are. So here's the code. I've got let me pull up my console here. I'm going to kill this thing for a second. There is a whole host of changes in here that are, as of yet, not committed because of the broken state of this thing. I don't really like to commit broken code. I think that's probably a good practice, if not a best practice. But I'm going to run this thing again, and we're going to explain what's going on and trace through and see what we can do to fix it. What I was doing, well, I'm losing my voice, so I'm having a little emergency as I work here. What I was doing last week is I was converting this thing from using just a single express route that rendered the same content no matter what, basically for my geographic location, which isn't super helpful. I was changing it to use a dynamic route which would accept a latitude and longitude in the URL, and then dynamically render a job listing based on that. We learned along the way that there are a couple things that I needed to change. In particular, I was using this React DOM server.render to static markup function, which it was functional at the beginning because I thought I was just going to be spitting out markup to an API and then consuming it. But I made the decision that this is instead going to be rendered in an iframe because it's easier to make functional dynamic content if I have sort of more than one shot at sending the markup back across to the page. So the idea here is that rather than setting this up as a midpoint API that Gymnasium grabs and renders as raw HTML on a page, instead this whole page will be spat out in an iframe, so essentially a web page within a web page. And because of that, I can do things like render content more than once. I can have dynamic content that changes and do all kinds of good stuff. So we're in the process of converting this whole thing from React DOM server.render static markup to something like this, which sets up a static router that renders the app component. If you are at all familiar with Node and the world of React, what this looks like is we're setting up what's it called? Server code splitting, basically. So server side and client side routing, which gets complicated pretty quickly. And it doesn't need to. So if I started from Create React App, I think this would be a little bit easier, but I didn't, and that's okay. We're going to learn from that. So here's what's going on here. Right now, the state of things, as we saw it in the browser, is that all I'm trying to do is render this index.html file inside of, well, so let me back up even further, perhaps. We've created an Express server, which is a very simple HTML server built on Node. Within that Express server, I'm trying to respond to every request against that. I want to serve up this index.html file. Index.html is a fairly blank HTML file, which merely contains a body tag, and a body tag and a script tag. The script, of course, pulls in this index.js, which renders our React content inside of this app tag. That's complicated and a bit of a tongue twister. Hopefully it'll make sense in a second. The point is, right now, that's not working. We're not even rendering this HTML thing. So if I take this out, I'm just going to comment this out, and I put in a header, hello, this is computer. It'll take a second to refresh because Babel has to transpile my code again, but that's broken. So what that means is that my very rootmost file here is boostado. This is not doing what I expect it to do. It probably has a bit to do with this express static file serverizer. And so we're going to have to do some searching ye old web to figure out how this works today. But I can show what I was doing beforehand when it was a JavaScript, when the Express app was just serving up some JavaScript. Is I was doing app. That was it. This would then render the app for all endpoints. So in that case, what it doesn't do is serve up the index.html we were just looking at, and instead, oh boy, that might not work. Instead, it renders this guy, source app, which contains all of the content. So I'll show you. This is from React. So that's just a very basic component renderizing. Oh, hello. Oh yeah, right. I forgot I have prettier included. We don't need that. Okay, cool. Let it recompile. It's running. Oh, address is in use. Right. Let's start that up again. So what we should see now is if this app.js is what's being loaded from Express, it will just come to this path because there's no latitude and longitude or market ID being passed in, and it'll simply render an h1 tag with that code in it. I'm going to restart here. This, of course, might not work. I actually think that I might need to use this instead of app.use. Not positive. We'll find out. We're going to do a bit of back and forthing today as I figure out what's going on. Part of what's happened too is my old brain meat has atrophied a bit over the week where I haven't touched this because I wanted to do this on stream. Tell you what we can do is, while this is suffering on another screen, I'm going to open up Express in GitHub, and I'll drag that over here. And we'll look through their docs for how to set this up. Actually, I should have just gone to the website, huh? Getting started. Meant the guide. Great. App.get. Oh, yeah, okay. No, that was a far too simplistic response. App.get. We want to say this, that, all of the things. Res.send. And here's we're going to say app. I believe. Let this thing recompile, refresh. We might be a little better off here. Nope. Even then, in responsive view here. So what I just passed it was a function, but I think it needs to be instantiated like that. So we'll let that recompile, we'll refresh it. There we go. Don't know what that is, but we've got it now. Okay, that's something. I'll at least show off that we're getting some markup to come through. Oh, no. Huh. Oops, that's not what I wanted. think that can still be used. So on my other screen here, I'm doing some searching around, which you might not be able to see now you mention it. Oh, right. So part of the problem here is I need to actually render the thing. Again, this JSX for app just transpiles to a function which returns an object. You need to actually use React to render that. So this would be react.render, react.dom.render, and then we're going to put the app in there. And I reckon that'll do it. Oh, right, and this needs a second thing. This is going to say the container element. Okay, so yeah, this brings us back to where we were going through before. So this takes two functions, this function takes two parameters. The first one is what we want to render, which is the app, and the second bit is the container element on the page. So we're going to use our document.getElementById bit. Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even zoom in on my code. How rude. Hopefully we can all see that. So this is going to be document.getElementById, and we have to go into here, and we're going to call it app, and do that. Put a comma there. Put a semicolon there. Maybe. No? There. Okay. Because prettier is just lovely. Okay, so now what this code will do is it'll look for an element on the page called app and render inside of that. The problem here is that we, on this page, there is nothing. Ooh, cannot read property render of undefined. Huh? Ah, React DOM server. That recompile. Document is not defined. That makes more sense because we are not within an HTML page right here. This is this is the nuance of what we were trying to do last week. So really, in this route, what I want to do is hook up my index.html. And all of that React DOM goodness needs to happen inside of this. So we can do that. If I pull up my Express API, excuse me, we don't need that. We're going to go to the API reference, and we're going to figure out how to serve up a static file. So express.static. This is a built-in middleware function in Express. It serves static files and is based on serve static. For best results, use a reverse proxy cache to improve performance. Yes, of course. In this case, we are going to start fairly simple. So, actually, I want to see a good example of this. Serving static files in Express. I think that's all it really needs to boil down to. No, this is where we were at the beginning of the stream. It says cannot get nothing. Okay. Ooh. This might be the point at which I start to consider using create React app, but this should be a solvable problem. So the path you provide to express static function is relative to the directory from which you launch your node process. If you run the express app from another directory, it's safer to use the absolute path of the directory that you want to serve. So let's try this. Lovely. Still cannot get nothing. Dot get. No. No, 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 no. I'm not sure why that's not working, to be honest. What I might do instead then is let's make a static folder and see what happens. It might just want a directory there. And we can make that happen. Yes, please. Okay. Huh. That's better. So now what I've done is in this index.html, we've got this hello, this is computer bit rendering. That's really funny. So I think if I had just left that there, I could have just used this path.join dir name. I know would have worked. But it's nice to have a static folder. We can do that. This is a good place for CSS and stuff like that to live, for compiled CSS or whatever. We might use a build folder eventually. Okay, so now what we need to do is have this thing look for our index file. So now it's looking for this JavaScript file. And we've got this app thing. And I actually don't know that that will work. So this should be pointing to the root of our application. Oh, which of course is not this any longer. We now want to point this thing to app.js. Okay, new thought. I'm going to move this into source. Yes, please. And this is going to be app.js. And in here, this is going to look for source. So this now looks for source and index.html for everything. Cool. This should be pulling in app.js. Just to be safe, we'll give it a nice little path. And then in app.js, we're going to drop in a debugger line to see if that's actually happening. Does not seem so, friends. And that would be because... why? Because we need the transpiled version of app.js that Babel is Babelizing for us. Youch. For Webpack? Amazing Webpack? No, I don't think so. Okay. At this point, I'm losing a lot of time to something that is really a solved problem and not the biggest deal in the world if I if I concede and switch to create React app. Because I'm going to have to start working in all of the other things like a build directory and blah, blah, blah that gets in the way of actually learning how to do the React and Node bits of this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for that window. Where'd it go? There we go. I'm going to stash my code, which is this guy here. Actually, maybe I'll just commit this code because it's not super broken. To a new branch. Yeah, okay. We're going to make a new branch from develop. It's going to be called feature dynamic routes. And we're going to do that. And we're going to stash and reapply. And I'm going to stage all of these things and say, well, I got close. Need to add build directory. We're going to commit all this, which is just fine. And then I'm going to create a new branch called feature CRA for create React app. We're going to switch to that branch. So now we're back based on the develop branch, which oops. If I start this again, we'll get back to where we were once upon a time without dynamic routes, but still buildable and servable. So now we're serving up these jobs from the API as React static markup. I'm going to do something that might seem a little brash and empty this directory temporarily. So let me open up that folder. Here's the folder with everything in it. I'm going to take all of this stuff and I'm dragging it to a new folder on my desktop, which is a nice old-timey way of doing this. Except for node modules, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. All of this just got moved. So now I've got effectively an empty project. This git ignore is fine. This is these should be moved. You know what? They're fine. I'm gonna leave those. Okay, so now back to the command line we go. We're gonna do create React apt here. Okay, we're gonna then just remove those. .babelrc is gone. That's gone. And then so now I've got a pretty clean directory going there. We're going to do this again. Oh my god. There we go, gone. Start a new React app. This will do a lot of the nightmarish work that I have just been going through. Importantly, I think it sets up Webpack and does a bunch of things to help the project be buildable and effectively obscures it from you. We've done something like this on the stream before. This isn't too different from that. And actually, this will prevent me from needing to set up server-side rendering and some of the other stuff that was going to complicate this sort of needlessly. So it's a bit of a concession that I didn't want to do, but I also don't want to spend like weeks on the stream working on the same thing. And I also don't want to do this off stream because it's better if we all learn together. So I can run yarn start now, and we will see a very blank looking application with a relatively blank looking page. Let it load. There we go. This is a out of the box create React app. So that is a perfectly fine place for us to start. We're essentially just going to clear this thing out and then backfill it with some of the code that we've already written. So it's sort of set up similar to what I was going for. So this public directory is basically a static directory that has the index HTML that all of the code is loaded into. It loads it into a root directory, which is specified here. It registers a nice little service worker, which is useful for caching things and making it run faster. I believe just on Chrome at the moment, maybe. Yeah, includes a lot of nice stuff. That's neither here nor there. We're going to start gutting it. So we don't need this logo. We can go into app and remove basically all of this. Maybe we'll leave that. We'll see this refresh. Yep. Okay. This also fully supports import syntax, which is a nice thing that we didn't have before. So now we've got this blank thing. I'm going to put some text in here. Hi, Mike. It'll automatically refresh. It's centered because there's some CSS involved. We don't want to center all of our text everywhere. That's like a huge thing not to do. Okay, we don't need a logo, we don't need a header or a title or an intro. Boy, all this stuff can go. Keyframes, yeah, okay. We blanked out our CSS. That's what you got now. So it renders, it's got a test suite even, which we had worked on a bit. Here's a very basic CSS. Oh, I see, so it includes index CSS on the index file and app CSS on the app file. That's cool. And that's it. That's the whole app. There's an icon that we can get rid of or edit or whatever. That's fine for now. This doesn't need anything else on it. We can change the title to Gymnasium Jobs Microservice. This won't be seen in production because this will be an iframe. Okie doke. It's now up there. That's cool. You know what I can even do, because I'm fancy, I'm gonna go grab the icon from Gymnasium. And gonna delete this one. There we go. So now this should have our little orange logo. Of course it doesn't. I don't really care. Okay. Now we're going to start bringing back in some of the code we had written. So in this lovely backup folder I created, I have all of that. And basically, we're going to start by integrating some of the packages we had used. What I'm going to do is, open up a new window of this new, there we go. Okay, and well, I guess we can, just opening up a new workspace in which I will load the backup stuff so I can have it in a nice viewable editor. Okay. This is all the old code. Primarily, we're going to come in here and grab the important dependencies, which were fetch and Lodash, and that might be it. NodeMon and God forsake prettier. We'll keep these in alphabetical order because things like that matter. All right. We added fetch and Lodash. I can also go grab the other metadata that I put in about me. Name, version, description, main, author, license, private. Great. All that. So we'll make it true for now. Hey, look, actually it's false. This is open source already. Okay. I don't think we need to pull in these configs and plugins quite yet. Jest is already there by default. So now we can start messing with some of the source code. And what I'm going to do for that is just copy all this stuff into the source directory here, and we can figure it out from there. Okay. No, I want to copy all the things. Sorry, in my other window here, I'm just copying stuff over. Hang with me for a second. Okay, should appear momentarily. Lovely. Okay, so I added a bunch of stuff. We will now sift through it like a team. I don't need this app.js any longer. Goodbye. app.test.js. Oops. I did want that. Well, that was dumb of me, wasn't it? Okay. Trash. Let's get it back. That's funny. There's no restore button. Okay, it's back. I forgot I switched it over to say hello to me. Okay. So we still have this test. These constants should be moved. We're going to add a util. We'll put constants in there. Yes, please. We're going to put this and this in there. I don't even know that this CSS file is particularly important to me. This is going to go in here. Just rearranging code. This register service worker was generated for me by Create React App. And everything else should be good to go. So now we can start working on the thing that I want to build. That's kind of cool. Okay, so from scratch here we go. What I want to do inside of this app.js component is render my job modules here. So, take my headphones out here. Inside of the app, what we've got to do first is establish, pull in some content from the API, and then start rendering out job modules for every one of the things that come back from the API. So that's a piece of cake. So we're going to create a constructor with all the right things in it. We're going to initialize the state, and this is going to be jobs. And it's going to be an empty array. Actually, it's going to be an empty object. And actually, that's probably not even necessary. So in here is where we're going to, I think this is where we're going to kick off the load. So we need to import our util stuff. So import load jobs for market. From util / job API. And in here, going to do load jobs for market. And we're going to say market ID. We'll pass in a market ID to begin with. This is actually, I think we want to use one of these functions. Fetch jobs for market, get market from lat long. Okay, so we don't want to use this because this job API is called by this. We can see that here. So we're going to call pull in these two functions. I'm just going to grab them all. Util/util. And we're going to say get market, so const market equals await. Get market from lat and long. Actually, that doesn't need to be awaited. And here's where we're going to pass in a latitude and longitude. We'll fill in the blanks for specifics from there later. And we're going to say const jobs equals fetch jobs for market. We're going to put in market. And then we're going to say, so we don't need this distance between points. We're going to then say this dot set state jobs is jobs. Yeah. So I think this is an asynchronous function. Yes, okay, so handle jobs. So we're going to create a callback method here. Handle job loaded equals jobs. And we're going to say this dot set state jobs. I think I can just do this. So what this is doing is when this component loads in its constructor, it's going to grab my market from the supplied latitude and longitude here, which will change in a bit. Based on that market, it's going to go and fetch jobs for that market from the API. It'll then, once that comes back, whenever that comes back, presumably after the constructor is done, it will handle the jobs being loaded by setting the state of this component to contain those jobs. And then in here, what we need to do is render each of those jobs. So we're going to say const jobs equals state, comes from this component's state. We're going to import Lodash for each from Lodash. And we're going to say in here, inside of our app div, we're going to say for each. Oh, actually, no, this should be map, not for each, because we want to actually return a component. So this is going to be map, and we're going to say jobs. And for each job, we're going to render a job listing, which is somehow not here. Oh, it's in components, right? Okay. Okay, I need to create an index file here to export that. So what that allows me to do is just pull the job listing component from this components directory without saying components/job listing. It's just a bit of shorthand, but it's convenient and nice. We've done that, and now here we're going to say job listing job equals job. I think that will do it. I really friggin' hate the way prettier. How do I disable prettier? It's probably a plugin I've got set up, isn't it? No? Let's look at my installed extensions here. Oh, I don't see prettier in there. Oh, there it is. Code extensions to format your JavaScript using prettier and ESLint with ESLint fix. That doesn't seem like it would do it. Okay, whatever. The point is, now, job listing is not defined because I need a G there. And state here should be this dot. And I don't need to use module.exports any longer. So we're going to say export const, and we're going to say export const, and for giggles, and also because I think these are tested, we're going to do it for all of these. Cannot resolve .util in components. Okay, so this uses it. Just updating these to newer import types. Cannot resolve fetch in util. Sorry, in source util. Job API.js. That means I need to run a yarn to install those packages. Okay. And now yarn start to run it again. Cannot resolve DNS. this is because I'm using the wrong package. There's a subtlety with using the fetch package that it only works on server-side node, which is not what we're using any longer. And there's a package called fetch dash. Oh boy, it's not polyfill. Isomorphic fetch. Yeah. Yes. That's what I want to use. So we need to come back into package and change fetch to, well, we're just going to remove it. So we're going to add isomorphic fetch. And then we need to change the actual code that pulls it to isomorphic fetch, which will work on the client side. If I'm lucky. Something else broke. Cannot assign to read-only property exports of object. That is in job API. We need to get rid of that. Is that ever used? No, we can get rid of this too. That's old code. Moving over lots of new code. We're going to say export default job listing. And then put a new line at the end of the file. Both input coordinates must have latitude and longitude specified, which means that I was expecting lat and long or something, and I typed the wrong ones. Ooh, 2 errors on the page. Ooh. Distance between. Right, it's in here. Latitude, longitude. Did I not spell that out correctly? Let's find out. Position, latitude 0, longitude 0. Let's put a breakpoint in here. And see what's wrong. Oh, I bet. Did I misspell it? Hang on. Oh, it's because they are 0. Latitude, longitude. Okay. That's silly. That's some bad error checking, actually. Generate UTM slug is defined but never used. Jobs is assigned a value but never used. Uh-huh. Okay, so what I'm making sure right now, this might just be because I'm being lazy about putting in a geographic coordinate. No, so we're getting back Paris, and we're saying, grab me jobs for market of Paris. I might need to, that might expect an ID. Let's see. Fetch jobs for market, yes. Okay. So that function name is misleading and therefore bad. No jobs, huh? That's annoying. Well, let's go into my constants file. And we'll use this latitude and longitude. Here. Here. What is concerning I'm actually not sure that this function is working. So I've got a market ID. Oops, I just stepped over the whole thing. What is happening? We have a market ID. What is the next? Why? What is happening? Let's put a... This is in a very weird state. It's possible I was getting an error that whole time. Okay, let's see. Any errors? Ooh, there's one. Isomorphic fetch URL is not a function. There are probably better ways to have shown me that error. Okay, I'm going to change over these two. Okay, did that work? Didn't appear to. Breakpoints are killing me. Okay, we got closer that time. Okay, I believe there's a different format for this. Primarily, this should go like that. And okay. See, that all looks okay. It's so hard to tell what's going on. Okay, that's a little better. Now we have an error inside of the job API in the callback. So let's see what the fetch callback looks like. Function just has a response. If response dot status is less than or equal to 200, that means we're good. Actually, we're just going to say debugger. So let's see what comes back in this response. Response.body. Okay. Obnoxious. Return response.text. Got it. Okay. So we're going to say return response.text. Then boy, this is super not straightforward to read though, huh? Okay. I think that'll do it. Oh boy. Did that work? What? What is happening? Body dot. Oh, I need to parse it. Okay. Finally. We're back. Okay. Now, what had happened was I got us back to where we were before. So now all we're doing is we're hitting the same API and rendering it into some stupid React components, just like we were previously. And now we can start worrying about routing, which basically means I just spent an hour and change getting back to where we were before we started last week. Okay, that's cool. I think at this point I might call it a day for the stream, in part because my throat is killing me. But now we have a great place to start continue starting from, and we'll have all kinds of routing goodness coming along in the next stream. That's it for me. You guys have a good week. I will catch you same place, same time next Tuesday. Take it easy.